Welcome to Hints from HR. My name is Billy Griffin. I am the Vice President of Development for We Do Trash. I will be your host today. Joining me, we have from the Texas Apartment Association, the VP of Education Foundation, Becca Ramati. Becca will be watching the LinkedIn live chat, so if you have any questions, make sure that you type them in there. So welcome, Becca.
Hi, Bill.
We also have the wonderful Nicolle Block, who is a director of Brookville Properties. Famous for this show. We love her input, so thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And our guest today will be Christi Wedel from AG Living. I'm going to stop here real quick and say Christi is a new grandmother, and we just got to get to see the new grandbaby, which was amazing. I'm jealous because I don't have grandkids yet, and I'm putting all kinds of pressure on my kids to get me some grandbabies. But the one that's in college is like, Dad, really? And I'm like, hey, at this point, I'm ready. Let's just do it, So I'm really envious of that. But Christi, I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself. Welcome to Hints from HR. We're excited to have you, and tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about AG Living.
Yes, well, thank you guys, first of all, for having me. This is such an honor to be here with you guys, the legends of our industry. So yeah, Christi Wedel. I'm with HR. I am with AG Living. Goodness gracious. I've been with the company for about 9 months now, and I am the learning and development manager. And so what I always tell people is that just means that I'm here as a resource for all things training and all things new hire orientation and all things ongoing training. So we have a lot of fun. We are a bit of a startup. We're about 3.5 years in, and just lots of exciting things going on over there. We are, our bread and butter is basically renovating older communities, and we love it. And there's some people in charge over there that do a fantastic job. And then I just get to do the fun stuff.
Fun stuff. We all like doing the fun stuff. Well, that's exciting. Welcome. And it's good to have you on board. Our topic today is kind of onboarding isn't orientation, and kind of from a high level, orientation is kind of a time for people to familiarize an employee with the company's vision and values. But the onboarding itself is talking more about the policies and the repetitive things. So we've all had experience onboarding done well, and in onboarding, we were kind of talking before we went live, onboarding done maybe not so well. So why don't you share a story or two, if you can, about onboarding maybe done well and maybe not done well? And I'd like Nicolle to chime in and do the same.
Oh, happy to. Yeah, so we can start with an oops is what I'll call it. Yeah. So we were talking before the show, and something similar happened to myself that happened to Billy in an office environment. So I started brand new, never been to the corporate office. This is when I first was transitioning from on-site to corporate. So of course I was desperately nervous and just completely crazy, with out of my mind, going, oh my gosh, can I do this? Total imposter syndrome, right? Like, oh my gosh, am I equipped to do this? And then I walked in, and it was awkward because there was no one to meet me there. And I tried reaching out to my supervisor at the time, and no one was answering. And so I just emailed, and then I'm sitting there. I sat there for 30 minutes in the lobby. And then finally someone comes by and says, have you been help? And I was like, oh, today is my first day. And they were like, and you are? And I was like, oh, wow. So there, so not only was it like super awkward, but it was also like I was interrupting their day, right? And so I've always kept that in my back pocket. So as I've transitioned over the past, we won't talk about how many years in the training, multifamily training space, I've always kept that in mind. And so I am very passionate about making sure that when people come in on their first day, they are met with open arms, red carpet, if you will. And so that's really what we're pushing for at AG Living. And I think, we've come a long way in the past 6 months, and, we have a ways to go, but we're getting rave reviews. And most importantly, we have less turnover. So yay for that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think I might have shared this one maybe an episode past whenever onboarding has come up, because obviously it's something we want to talk about often. But one of my most interesting, memorable, maybe not in a fantastic way as far as onboarding, was when I started as a vice president with the company, and I came in on a Monday morning, and they said, we have our VP meeting at 9:30. on Monday mornings. And so I walked in and there's probably about 10 people in the room, and my supervisor was there. And two of the other people I already knew just through association life. They didn't think it was odd that I was sitting there, and it didn't mention like him. They said good morning to me, which was great. And so we sat there, and I'm sitting here in this meeting thinking, did a memo go out about me? Do they already know that I'm here? I don't know any of these people. And we're just talking about stats and rolling through things like left and right. And I'm just sitting there thinking, what do I do? I don't have a computer. They're all up on their computers. I'm just sitting there. And I finally, about a third of the way through the meeting, just said, hi, I'm not sure if you guys are already aware, but I'm Nicolle Block. I'm the new VP for this X region. And I know some of you guys, but I wanted to introduce myself and see what other roles you play so that I can understand how I fit kind of into this puzzle. And all of them were like, oh my goodness, I thought you were in training. I thought you were here or like the training department. I thought you were going to present, or I thought you were a vendor. I was just like, they had no idea why I was there, even the ones I knew. Like, I'm in operations, but so, and then my supervisor was even like, oh yeah. And I'm just sitting there thinking, wow. Okay. So, and then obviously just snowballed from there, but I just started thinking to myself, like, again, to your point, no one knew I was coming. No one knew I was there. And I didn't even, and luckily I'm not a shy person, and I'm going to insert myself. But I would say that most people wouldn't. And so that someone might have sat through the whole entire meeting and then walked out and been like, what's next? So I don't know, but it did kind of set the tone for that company. I'm thinking, okay, we have some work to do. Introductions.
Learning opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Learning opportunities. And luckily for all of us, the stories we're telling were a few years back, and we've improved so much because we realize now how important it is to have processes and have things in place. So we can sit here probably and tell horror story after horror story. Let's change gears a minute and talk about maybe a story that's done really well, like one that you've looked at and gone, wow, this was fantastic. It was a home run, and maybe we've used that to make processes or policies or things that we're able to use all the time over and over again.
And when Christi and Nicolle get a chance to think about their stories, I just wanted to say that, the Texas Apartment Association Education Foundation, we're focused on tools for our TA members related to recruiting and retention and training and advancement. And retention really starts at onboarding. I mean, it starts with that first impression, but it doesn't stop there. And that's what the onboarding isn't orientation sort of theme for this show is all about. And so it's just really important that we all think about the importance of it. Make sure that it's more than just that orientation. And so I think that's just really important to set the stage for the conversation and to hear about some of the good examples of onboarding that Christi and Nicolle and Billy probably can share as well.
I would love to kick things off and give a big shout out to my old teammates over at TriCap. That was by far the best onboarding experience I've probably ever had. And it is, I'm no longer with the company, but I love all of the folks that were there and that are there. And so it's all remote, right? Like every role was remote. And so even being remote, they made me feel like I was a big part of the company prior to day one. So there was no, where's my computer? What day am I going to meet with people? How do I check in with my supervisor? It was literally all laid out in professional emails prior to me starting. So really, that conversation and the professionalism started from that very first conversation. So that interview, right? And then it just continued. So it was a follow-up email right after the interview. And then it was, we're here with an offer. Oh, and by the way, that was less than 2 weeks. Can I get a shout out for sending the offer letters within a certain amount of time and not a month or two later when people are dying for a job? Not to get too deep into the weeds, but essentially I knew every step of the way. They led the way, and then they let me know exactly when this was going to happen and this was going to happen. And it being all remote, there was no walking into corporate and meeting people. So they literally sent me an outline from 9 to 10, you're gonna meet with this person, 10 to 11, meet with this person. Oh, and then we sent you an e-gift card for lunch, right? And so have lunch on us, come back in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It was a really It's what I aspire to do in a live environment, right? Because the company I work for is local in Dallas, Texas, and all of our communities are here. And so I try to take bits and pieces of those wonderful experiences and then roll them into what I do now. And so that's probably the best experience I've had. What about you, Nicolle?
Yeah, no, I think that a lot of common factors in that. And I would say that one of the best experiences that I had was where, again, I came in, everyone was expecting me. My office was like set up, if you will. And what I love that you said that I felt really connected to is that they said, we've planned half of your week and we've left the other half for exploratory, whatever you need to do, because you have a day job, right? We all come into positions that need something. And so I love that my day was half spent and half planned. And here's why, and here's what this person's going to do. And that was probably good for the first like 30-ish days. But then there was a touch base at 60 days and 90 days, just reviewing a lot of the content from the first 30. And so because you're just drinking through that fire hose. And so I think that was probably the best overall onboarding experience that I had. And again, they knew about me and they sought me out. So again, the new people, they don't know where to go. They don't know what to ask. They don't know anything really, but it's for you to say, hey, Nicolle Block, you're on our team. You're overseeing XYZ. Like, here's what I do for you. Please let me know how I can help. And a lot of companies do that. But then after about 30 days, if they hadn't touched base with me, depending on the cycle of where I was, right? I might not talk to the disposition and acquisitions VP if I'm not selling or buying something, right? But they circled back in about 30 or 60 days and just said, hey, hope you're transitioning well, whatever, those types of things. And so I think that was what was most impactful and what we strive to do as well. I think to Billy's point, I know that Brookfield has been very focused for the past 2 years on onboarding, and we'll talk a little bit about how we're even taking it and dissecting it further, just to make it almost like the life cycle of an associate as opposed to the life cycle of a resident. To Becca's point with what the Education Foundation does, like we want to recruit, but we want to train and retain and then get them ready for advancements. We can build in that bench strength. So I think that foundation made me feel here again, validates my choice to come work for that company. And I think when you walk in the door and you're in tears after day one or week one, or you are like, oh, they don't even know that I'm here or what my name is, how are they going to treat me long term? And so I think a lot of the turnover, just like with a resident, they have a good moving experience, 80% chance they're going to renew, right? Yeah. They have a bad onboarding experience, 80% chance they're going to walk. So I think that there's a lot of parallels to what we do for customers that we need to do for associates.
And I'm going to jump in here too and say, I couldn't agree with you more too, and say that drinking from a fire hose is, I think, how everybody feels when they first go. And if you can give people bite sizes and give them, some of the best ones I've had, you get, again, half your day is learning a few things. The other half is asking questions, exploratory, maybe going to lunch with a few different teams. And maybe they're teams that you're going to be working with. Maybe they're teams of just people that you just see. As you said, it's like you don't have a lot of interaction with them. So that helps make you feel like, okay, I am a part of this, because they do kind of care what I'm doing, even though we don't interact all the time from them. So those are great. That's great. So let's, we talked about maybe dissecting a little bit and kind of, breaking this down a little bit more. It's, there's a lot of research that's been done about onboarding and kind of it's an ongoing process. It's kind of a never ending thing. So how do you guys incorporate the 4 phases of employee onboarding in a company? The pre-boarding, the orientation, the training, and the integration. What do you want to jump in?
Go, Christi. Christi, you take the lead, Christi. I'll
okay.
Sprinkle in.
All right, sounds good. I was like, Nicolle, you got this, or you want me to go? Because I can jump right on into that.
Girl,
one.
You're my guest. You're my guest. You go first.
That's it.
Yeah, so I think, I love the fact that Nicolle brought those parallels in from the resident experience, because she could not be more right. And that's exactly, I guess, being on site for 15 plus years, I think I have that emblazoned in my brain that, just like you said, if a resident moves in and it's just something's not working, or if it's the kitchen sink is not working, they're going to hone in on that kitchen sink for the entire time that they're at the company. And so the same thing happens with an employee. If it's not a really good experience, they're going to kind of be on the edge. And the thing is you want to build that trust. And when someone comes in and they don't feel welcome, they don't feel like you have their best interest at heart as a new team member. So their trust is already, they're on guard, right? They're like, did I make the right choice? Did they care about me? And to your point, Nicolle, are they going to treat me long-term? What's that going to look like long-term?
Right.
Right. And so what we try to do over at AG Living is incorporate some of the best of these experiences that we've all had. And so, what that looks like is the candidate experience. We've kind of done a complete overhaul with that. And I don't want to get too deep into it because here's the thing. Guess what? Newsflash, I don't have it all figured out. I don't. And we don't. I'm going to tell you how we do it. And it works beautifully for us right now, where we are, the people the candidates we have, and in the region we are. There's general ideas that will work in every single situation. And I'd like to touch on those as opposed to like the nitty gritty of what we do, because this is how I look at it. Treat that person as you want to be treated, right? Because all I know is if I walk into somewhere and I don't feel welcome, I'm going to be thinking more about the treatment that I got versus the job I'm there to do. Because again, I'm going to be a little bit more on edge. And so again, what we do at AG Living is it starts with that candidate experience. It starts with on the phone, making sure that we follow up with people when we say we're going to follow up. We give offer letters just as quickly as possible. And we have a recruiting tracker, keeps track of all of this stuff back in. I don't want to nerd out on you, but that's essentially how we keep ourselves organized to know that, we said we were going to call this person back, and it's been 2 days, so we need to call them back, right? So we have those touch points, which I think are those things that fall through the cracks, because HR and that there's pieces that are moving. You have HR department, typically you have hiring manager, and then maybe you have a regional or a VP, or depending on what that. So there's probably 3 different levels of people that are involved in that process. And if it's not organized, it's difficult, right? You may have an email that goes out to this person. Hey, did you talk to them? Oh, it's been 2 days. Did you follow up with them? And it's just chaos, right? So we have, again, just a simple spreadsheet. It's nothing fancy, but it's a recruiting tracker that helps us stay on track. And then offer letter goes out. As soon as the offer letter goes out, immediately following is a welcome email. And in that welcome email, it doesn't matter if it's from porter to VP or founder, he doesn't ever have to do training, but VP role. And everyone in between comes to our corporate office first day. Day one, they come up to the corporate office and we roll out the red carpet. So in that email, we explain where you park, because we're in Uptown, right? So it's a little wonky. So we just pretend like this person's never been to downtown Dallas, right? Because it's difficult. So it's everything from where you park, the code to get in, what we're going to do for you for lunch, who you're going to meet with, exactly what time you're going to be able to leave, and really it's just the whole day at a glance. So they know what to wear, so they're comfortable. They know who they're going to meet with. They know exactly where to go, and they know who to ask for when they get there. And I know those sound like super basic things, but I feel like we were missing. We as a company, we were missing that. I'll be 100% transparent.
Sure.
And then it starts with that. So they sit down with me and they do new hire orientation, where we cover all things high level. We don't touch on systems. We don't touch on any of that stuff. We talk about the culture of the company. Here's a concept: when you're going to get paid. Because if I'm a porter and I've been out of work for a month or 2 or whatever, I'm like, I need to know, am I getting paid this Friday for a few days or next Friday? Like, what does that look like? So we break it down so that when they leave, they have a full understanding of the company and they feel comfortable with the company that they've come to work for. And then I also, that in the morning time, I walk them around. And again, situations might be different depending on your situation in your office, but I walk them around and we do what's called the pageant wave, right? Because nobody likes this, right? So we do the pageant wave as we walk through the different departments, and I point and say, this is Nicolle, this is Billy, this is Becca, and what they do at a glance. We go more granular dependent on role, of course. And then, then we just follow that up with the rest of the new hire orientation. And then they do take the fair housing training that afternoon. So we provide lunch for them, and they just sit down and do fair housing. And then we try to get them out of there by 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock at the latest, because day one is just a little bit crazy. And I think what we used to do, and what's happened to a lot of people before, is you just send them to their property and you're like, here's your keys, here's the work orders, here's a site map, good luck, and you're like, all the things, I don't know anything about anything. So that's what we do at
Christi,
AG.
before Nicolle jumps in, there are a couple of things you said that fit in our theme of all the hints from HR episodes. One is just, you're saying this works for you now, but your company's going to grow and it's going to change. And it's important to take the time to stop and think, do we need to rethink our processes as we grow? And that's something we talk about a lot. Have the conversation, try new things, see if it still fits, if it still works. And so Nicolle, as you jump in, I would love to hear beyond the first day too, how that, Nicolle's favorite word, how you can be intentional with onboarding.
Yeah, no, perfect. And just kind of giving a high level overview for onboarding. And I think it's perfect what Christi said too. The goal of this podcast is for you guys just ask questions, go back to your company and just ask. You may have a plan. You may love the plan. You may hate the plan. You may need to change the plan, but we just want to make sure you guys are asking the questions. So very good content. So one of the things that we had talked about in our intake call is that onboarding is this morphing, constantly moving target, and it should be, because it needs to change with the times and with, again, with your company, with their needs of your associate. But one of the things that we try to be more intentional about as we've been looking at onboarding is that, one, yes, define your onboarding program. What does it look like? How does it fit the cycle of at least 12 months? I mean, we used to think 90 days was robust and super amazing. But again, now we're comparing it to the life cycle of a resident. It needs to be continuous and ongoing. So that was one thing we kind of shifted our focus. But I think the intentionality that we're talking about and that Becca was asking about is also tailoring it for the needs of the person, but also the property and what they're coming into and what they're doing. So one of the things that we looked at is that we have altered our onboarding to dependent upon a couple of things. So for instance, we are in the real estate business. So sometimes we buy apartment communities. So if we buy an entire apartment community, the onboarding for a 700 unit, 17 associate, acquisition is going to look a lot different than one assistant manager that's starting on a stabilized property. And so we tailor the onboarding. They still have to get the same amount of information, but what comes first? What can wait? What needs to be followed up on in a different way? So we've definitely tailored and we've been piloting it. So again, very new, but piloting it and seeing how successful it is as far as retention and just reducing turnover and engaging the associate and getting their feedback. So acquisitions we've talked about. We've also done kind of a revamp on lease ups. So lease ups we look at too, because again, they are building up out of the ground. It's very, sales focused, closing focused. But then once you get in there and it gets to 70, pushing that 95% occupancy, then it's working like a conventional operating, type asset for your company. And that has a different set of compliance rules. That is a different set of just like, boxes to check. So we kind of go back and do a different type of onboarding. We don't have to teach them, the name of the company anymore, but what does it feel like and what does it look like to work on a conventional community as opposed to a lease up? We also talked through a corporate onboarding, a corporate associate in a corporate office, as opposed to a site associate. And how does that look and feel? And so I think that we're trying to look at maybe 4 to 5 different iterations of the onboarding. What does every single one of them have to have? Again, what's not negotiable? And what is specific to that particular onboarding. And I think that really makes it feel intentional, but also it's absorbable, so we don't want to just, we did that in another talk show is like safety and compliance meetings, right? So you have your LMSs and they're very robust and you don't want to be out of compliance. So you give them 33 classes that they have to take their first week. And everyone has to have the same thing, but I don't know that I need to know about snow removal right now. I just don't. I don't think so. But we give them all the exact same. I mean, it's 108 in Dallas right now. But I think that
yes, it is.
I know we're dying, but we give them all the same. It's that painting with that broad brush. I'm like, look, operate with a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. You're killing everybody. And so that also affects their onboarding experience. But Becca was saying too, we were really trying, and again, we're piloting it. It is a moving target and a constant work in progress. But that's what we're trying to focus on as far as still getting them the information that they need, But now that we're looking at it as a, maybe a 6 month to 12 month type of landscape, the approach is a little bit different. Not so much the fire hose, maybe a little, the little drip system. I don't know.
I love the investment y'all are talking about.
I love that.
Long-term investment in the people. And that's what it's all about. I think that's awesome. And we've got a little bit of time left. Let's, if you Google onboarding at all, the 6 C's pop up all the time. The compliance, clarification, connection, culture, confidence, and check back. So, again, I'm going to start with Christi. Tell us a little bit about the buzzwords and how you kind of incorporate those in, and your thoughts on it.
Yeah, well, 100%. I think that for me, connection is always number one. Without the connection, the other pieces don't really fit together, right? And so the connection is number one. I feel like people need now more than ever, and I've kind of been saying this since the beginning of COVID, but now more than ever, people need to feel connected. They need to feel connected to the role that they're taking on. They need to feel, dare I even say, a personal connection, not in a weird way, to the person they're going to be working with. They need to
HR friendly.
What's that?
I said
HR friendly.
Yeah, the HR friendly way. We're not talking about going on dates, people. Come on, let's keep it real.
That's funny.
But I do feel like there's, the lines have been blurred a tad in the fact that, we send emojis to each other. We send jokes to each other. We need to feel like we can be connected to the people that we're going to be working with. Obviously, HR appropriate stuff. Don't be sending weird stuff. Yes, let's put that caveat in there. But yeah, so then the connection is number one. And then I feel like, one of the things that I feel really strongly about is our culture at our company. And I know, Nicolle, you feel the same way. We all do, right? Otherwise, we probably wouldn't be there. But I feel very strongly about it. And I feel strongly about our story. We were a startup that started in the middle of a global pandemic, right? So, it's a lot of fun to share the story, and so that people understand they're working for a company and for people who really truly care, right? So bring in that culture piece. And I love Nicolle's, I could do this all day long. She's much more succinct than I am, because is what my old boss used to say. I'm very verbose. I thought that was a compliment. And then I Googled it and I was like, oh, wait, thanks, I think. No, but yeah, so it does continue for a full solid year. And even after that, we do anniversaries and we do stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with you. 90 days was like, when we first talked about 90 days, like checking in for a full 90-day cycle in this industry, we were like, oh, we're fantastic.
Rockstar. No, I totally agree too. And just to kind of tie it and wrap it up with a bow for Billy is that, whatever order you put those C's in, there's no wrong order. But the only one that I would say that needs to be consistent is the check back, right? So it's like, so if you're going to connect, check back, how's it going? We're going to talk about culture, check back, how's it going? We're going to talk about compliance, check back, how's it going? And I think too many times we run down the road, just plowing forward to check, kind of form over substance, just check that box. And we never look back. And then until someone says, yeah, I'm sure you showed me this 2 years ago, but I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I would just say whatever C you choose to go with, there's no wrong C's. It depends again on the company, the person you're training, the department they're in, et cetera. Check back, right? I would lead, now I'm a culture girl, so I would lead with culture connection personally, but I'm just saying, but if you're hiring an auditor, compliance probably needs to be off the top of that list, right? So put that in between every single one of those C's. So that's what I would kind of leave you guys with as far as my perspective.
And we're running out of time, so I'll let Billy wrap it up. But I will say, culture and connection allow you to have those big moments or those special moments for someone as they're coming into the company. And so looking for those opportunities and taking advantage of those opportunities to make someone feel special, make someone know that you're glad and excited that they're there, can mean a lot more than the other rest of the C's at the start. Right. So it's not a bad plan, although you're right, there is no wrong answer or wrong order, but those give you the opportunity to do a lot more with them.
Yeah, for sure.
What a great topic and what a great group of people to talk about this. I feel like, Christi, thank you so much for taking time and sharing your insight from AG Living. Nicolle, as always, you're a superstar, rock star, and I'm just honored to kind of share a screen with you, man. This is great. Becca, as always, couldn't do it without you. I want to thank all of you, and I want to thank everybody for listening today. And again, if you have comments later or want to add notes later, we'll kind of follow up and check on them. But thank you for tuning in, and catch us next time.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks, Christy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.